people singing and dancing like on the street, it just feels weird because if you do that in Iran, like they can arrest you. Did you know that?
For dance?
It's a little eye-rolly, like why are you presenting it like it feels like he's paid to do propaganda for
the U.S.
Yeah.
Like the U.S.
You know, they say the bigger you are, the harder you fall, and a perfect distillation of this concept is IDubbbz, or at least the guy formerly known as IDubbbz, now currently known as Ian Joma, the wife of Anissa Joma, who can only be described as probably the worst influence on anybody's career since Yoko Ono, although I will point out that many of the flaws within the Beatles actually pre-existed Yoko Ono, and thus led to the downfall. She was more of a catalyzing force in that particular instance, whereas Anissa appears to be the person who is driving IDubbbz to this level of insanity, because once we had a YouTuber who was creative, who was funny, who was entertaining, who had the platform at his grip, and people were waiting for Content Cops to be released because they wanted to see who this individual would take down in a comedic and clever way, and now we have somebody who aspires, no joke, to be the white version of Jank's nephew.
I might do different times, so it could be like during the night or something. I still haven't figured that part out. Because I don't know if I want to be streaming when Hassan's streaming. But I also might want to stream while Hassan's streaming because he deserves like a little competition. I think that's maybe a good idea. Especially if people see me as like the white Hassan.
Yeah, I'm dead serious about that. This is what this man actually said is his life goal. One of the greatest downgrades in human history. And by the way, along with his symbolic downgrade into bottom tier gutter level content, he has also got a downgrade in lifestyle because Ian, as has been documented multiple different times, went from rags to riches and back to rags and is currently living in his in-laws' basement in Canada, as it appears that the content that everybody understands sucks is also not making any money because it in fact sucks. And a perfect example of him being absolutely terrible, lacking all self-awareness that he previously had, and essentially onboarding all of his wife's stupid ass beliefs, which by the way, a great number of them are just anti-American beliefs, a la Jank's nephew, is this segment that he did where he was reacting to an episode of 90 Day Fiancé. Again, very high tier content over at IDubbbz's stream over there, and during the course of this, he decided to mock a guy who was Iranian for talking about laws that he said were made up about Iran that were actually 100% true and factual. But of course, what really bothered Ian and Anissa over there is that he was talking up the United States of America, talking down a Middle Eastern third world hellhole, and we all know that you can't actually compare countries and say that the United States of America is better. You have to say America bad, America terrible, and all these Islamic nations are absolutely top tier all the way. Otherwise, you're engaged in American propaganda. You're an Ameriboo, according to these absolute idiots. So this is what we're going to talk about today. This is what we're going to discuss. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
People singing and dancing like on the street, it just feels weird because if you do that in Iran, like they can arrest you. Did you know that?
For dance.
Now, the premise of 90 Day Fiancé, for those of you who are unaware, is essentially green card fraud or potential green card fraud, as it's a show that documents the journeys of people who meet other people overseas who want to get married within this 90-day window in which they're allowed to stay in the United States of America. And again, the whole premise of the show is to figure out whether or not the people who are coming here to get married are actually legitimately in love, whether the people who are in love with the foreigners are actually passport bros or passport gals and aka some kind of weirdos, or whether or not it's true love, it's legit, it's all first class and stunning all the way. And this allows a lot of people to experience American culture for the first time. And a perfect example of this is this individual who came to the United States from Iran in order to meet his 90-day fiance, who, by the way, he ultimately ended up marrying. Now, for those of you who are unaware, Iran, or the Islamic Republic, is an Islamic theocracy. It is run run by the Ayatollah. These people are absolutely terrible. They have an incredibly restrictive government, and it's essentially what will happen in a couple of years to places like the United Kingdom if they continuously import a Muslim population and insist that there's no difference and there's no superiority or inferiority between the values of Islamist nations and Western nations that, you know, have all the wealth and innovation and creativity and all the wonderful freedoms that people like Ian and Anissa take for granted. Now, obviously, this guy comes to the United States of America, so on its own, it's going to be a bit of a culture shock. However, he also decided that he was going to come to the city of New Orleans during Mardi Gras, so obviously, when you end up having a celebration that, let's say, is not exactly 100% the most family-friendly, that often involves a lot of alcohol consumption and a lot of less than fully clothed women, again, you're going to expect a bit of a culture shock. So when he comes to the United States of America, he then remarks on said culture shock in front of the camera, and this is what set off Ian and Anissa.
It's a little eye-rolly, like, why are you presenting it like, it feels like he's paid to do propaganda for
the U.S.
Yeah.
Like, the U.S., like...
So this is so strange to me, because I'm seeing everyone having such a good time here, being so free
and laughing.
But in Iran, you would be arrested on the spot for having any sort of joy.
If you were ever feeling joy, they would arrest you in Tehran, Iran.
So one of the things that's most annoying about this particular clip, other than the fact that you have these smug progressives totally disconnected from reality, attacking this individual in order to attack America by proxy, because they're bothered by anybody praising the superiority of the United States of America. And let me be clear, America is a superior civilization to what is currently going on in Iran, no doubt about it, is the fact that they're also completely wrong, and they have access to technology that could prove or disprove their claims right now, right in front of them, because anybody could understand that when this guy says it's illegal to dance in public in Iran, that you can go onto the Google machine, look it up, and discover that it is in fact illegal to dance in public in Iran. Now, they make it seem like you could get arrested for any kind of public joy in that nation. That wasn't what was alleged. That wasn't what was said. It was specifically the dancing part of it. And again, you'd have to be an absolute idiot, or again, a dumb progressive in the West, aka the same exact thing, to not understand that every aspect of Mardi Gras would essentially be illegal in the nation of Iran due to the fact that they have Islamic law instituted in that particular nation. Again, alcohol, you have women not being guarded, you also have, let's just say, less than fully dressed women showing themselves off for beads. All of that would not be good in the nation of Iran, and of course, Ian and Anissa can't stand the fact that a guy actually from Iran is telling them that. Again, we have somebody who's pretending to be oppressed because she's part Lebanese. That is Anissa, that's Ian's wife right there, and by the way, she's also part Irish, but she grew up in Canada. But again, that doesn't stop them from claiming that they somehow have a mastery on the concept of oppression.
I'm not going to assume that Hila knows, but I'll say it for anyone who doesn't know. Anissa is half Lebanese and half Irish. For anyone unfamiliar, the Irish have been on the receiving end of a lot of oppression and genocide. On the part of the Lebanese, they've received a lot of oppression and attacks from the IDF.
And they're going to tell a guy who actually lives in Iran, who actually lives in the nation that they're referring to, that he's just being an American propagandist.
Yeah, it's a little over the top.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah, he's an Ameriboo
Yeah.
of the ass.
Maybe he's imagining too much. You're right, Psychonaut. Maybe he's imagining people dancing with their tits out in the U.S.
They're doing the fucking...
Maybe he's imagining it gets so much worse.
This capitalism is so great.
So the level of stupidity of these clips is beyond all parallels because, again, you have IDubbbz using as an analogy an exaggerated form of what he's talking about, which is people dancing topless in the city of New Orleans during Mardi Gras, which, by the way, happens in the city of New Orleans during Mardi Gras. So his example of a crazy version of the United States of America and what's permissible here is exactly what this guy would be commenting on about what is permissible exactly where he is at the time that he's there. Again, this is what Mardi Gras is known for. Now, I will also point out that Anissa, his wife right there, has an OnlyFans page, and whether or not you decide to log on to that or whatever, I recommend you absolutely don't. Understand that being a pornographer is also illegal in the nation of Iran, a nation that they're defending right now because they're offended that the show on TLC that they're watching features an Iranian who wants to become an American talking about the problems that he has with the nation of Iran. So this guy also makes a comment about a person walking a dog in public.
Yeah,
It's starting to make her uncomfortable.
What?
You can't have your dog
On a leash?
even on a leash.
Well, where are
in
you
the
supposed to
street.
keep it?
I don't know, at home.
Okay, so you
Like,
don't know.
Everything has changed.
I just don't think you have a
48
dog,
hours
bro.
ago,
Yeah.
I was in Iran. Everything was.
No shot that's true. None
I-
of this is true. That's what's so
I-
annoying about
Like,
it.
This is so.
This is going to be a lot of people's exposure
To
to
Iran.
Iranians and Iranian culture. They're like, oh, I guess
You can't have dogs in Iran. You can't put a dog on.
he just grew up conservative. Yeah, and he
That's
just didn't
what I
have.
thought. Because a lot of Muslims don't have
Right.
dogs.
That's
in
why you
their
have to ask the
conservative.
follow up question.
Yes.
Her follow up question told you all that you needed to know.
Yeah.
Like,
Where do they
oh,
keep it?
I have no idea. Okay, so you just don't know.
And he says in Iran, you would not be able to do that even on a leash. And Ian and Anissa, of course, react like that's the most ridiculous thing he's ever heard in his entire life. And Anissa's like, oh my God, that's crazy. He must just come from a conservative household. Again, not bothering to look up the fact that the Iranian crackdown on dogs is something well known and well documented. And of course, in a great number of major cities, you are not allowed to walk your dog even on a leash in public because, again, dogs are frowned upon under Islamic law. So the idea that this guy who lives under Islamic law would be talking about something that he faces while living under Islamic law, and these people wouldn't even bother to look it up and instead go to somebody in the chat and they'd say that's ridiculous, is patently absurd and, again, asinine. Again, Muhammad, you can look this up for yourself, kiddos, was not a fan of dogs, and specifically black dogs. Very funny about that, by the way. And yeah, this is being implemented in Iran, and it actually caused a lot of backlash between Iranians and the government because a lot of Iranians are not very religious. They actually absolutely love their dogs because they have a tradition of being closer to Western nations. But in addition to that, more crucially, Iran is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. So their culture well predates Islam, and there is a constant conflict between Iranian historical culture and the Islamic invaders that brought this religion to that nation that is currently running that nation, and by the way, has been running it since 1979. But the Islamic Iranian culture conflict dates back again to the arrival of Islam in that particular area. But do Ian and Anissa give you any of that information? No, absolutely not. They say that's just absolutely not true, even though you could look it up for yourself.
You can't have dogs in Iran. You can't put a dog on.
He just grew up conservative. Yeah, and he
That's
just didn't
what I
have.
thought. Because a lot of Muslims don't have
Right.
dogs.
That's
in
why you
their
have to ask the
conservative.
follow up question.
Yeah.
So they say, oh, he just grew up conservative, and they're like, yeah, a lot of Muslims don't have dogs because it is considered not kosher in their religion or not halal in their religion in order to do so due to Muhammad's active disdain for dogs. So yeah, a lot of Muslims didn't have dogs, so presumably there's a reason for that that's tied into their religion, but more importantly, when that religion ends up being the governing force in your nation, that is enforced by law. And considering Iranians had a culture of dog ownership pre the Ayatollah, they have been cracking down and limiting dogs multiple different ways in order to achieve their goal of getting them out of the country.
Like,
saying whatever
like
he
you
thinks
really, you have to be, yeah, I have to be careful about the words.
You can speak freely here. You're an American.
Are you shit? But they're going to come find me and they're going to drone strike me. The Iranian government will drone strike me if I say mean things.
Listen, he's planning on going back potentially, okay? And if he wants to travel back, he's got to be careful with what he says.
Bro. Are they gonna check his last 5 years of social media history? So this is just so, yeah.
Now, of course, this man ends up alluding to the fact that he doesn't want to talk about this because he's worried about his family. This is completely dismissed by Ian and Anissa. Anissa's like, oh, are the Iranians going to drone strike you? Even though, again, he says clearly he's worried and concerned about his family. But the funny thing is that I've seen other people break down this particular video, and they point out that later on in the episode, this guy is not just praising everything about America, he's actually uncomfortable by a lot of the over-the-top sexualized performances that are common with Mardi Gras, yet Ian and Anissa have no commentary on that.
So many things in Iran are banned and taboo, so everything is just making me really uncomfortable. I can't say the biggest culture shock that I've ever had since I got here in the US. Like, it was too much that I had to just walk out.
See, when he's saying that he's feeling the freedom of the United States of America and how different it is and how much of a cultural shock, that happens to be anti-Iranian propaganda, pro-America propaganda. But then when he says, you know what, there's a lot of things that are a little bit too permissive over here, this isn't really for me, they got nothing to say. But one of the funnier clips that is not really making the rounds, although I spotted it here and there in other people's videos, is this clip right here of him talking about petting a cat, which is a perfect example of how stupid Anissa is, specifically. What a dumbass, because she's like, Muslims love cats. What he's saying is absolutely not true. That makes no sense.
Oh, cats love Middle Easterners.
Touching a cat, I swear.
It's his first time touching a cat. Okay, I'm sorry. Something's off about this guy. I have never heard a Middle Easterner say something like that before. There's no way this is his first time touching a cat.
I think he's doing it up.
I'm sorry. There's no way. I thought all of
This is my first time touching a cat. Immediately reaches for the cat.
There's cats everywhere in Tehran. Come on, that one's give us that one at least. The cats in Morocco and places have rabies. You can't touch them. None of them? What about all the cats in Turkey?
And this is said even after she's corrected by her chat.
You promise it's clean?
Yes.
Seriously?
She's
No, it's filthy. You promise it's clean is rubbing the cat?
Okay, again.
See you.
I know Iran is like very far away from where the culture that I was raised, but I want you to know that the Muslims that I knew growing up, okay, all the Middle Easterners that I knew growing up would let their cats walk on prayer rugs and like the Quran, and that's how clean a lot of people I know viewed cats. I've never heard somebody ask if a cat was clean. It's just so foreign to me.
So again, this just goes to ignorance right here, because while it is true that many Islamic nations tend to be much cooler with cats rather than dogs, this doesn't actually factor in what I talked about earlier about how Iranian culture is older than Islam, so they have developments and whatnot that will be distinct from other Islamic nations. But in addition to that, it doesn't factor in the realities on the ground, which is there is high risk of rabies in the nation of Iran. And by the way, that risk of rabies is not just from cats, it's also from dogs, so that might also be an explanation beyond Islam why there's such restrictions on dogs in the nation of Iran. But again, they talk about how, oh, wouldn't all the cats be dead if they were all rabid, which is completely asinine and ridiculous, and 100% misses the point. So about 20% of rabies cases in the nation of Iran come from cat bites, stray cat bites, wild cat bites, and again, this is a disease that if you don't have proper medicine, and if you live in a rural area, you are likely not to get treatment for, and thus you are likely to die from. So obviously this is a serious scenario, and this would likely ward you off of touching random cats in that nation if you have that level of risk. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that every cat, nor every stray cat has rabies. It just means that a huge portion of rabies transmissions end up coming from cats. To me, this is like akin to talking about mongoose mongooses in the island of Puerto Rico versus mongooses in the islands of Hawaii, because mongooses are both an invasive species in both locations. However, 80% of rabies cases in Puerto Rico come from the mongoose population, and Hawaii, by comparison, doesn't have rabies on the island at all whatsoever due to an intensive screening process. Now, this doesn't mean that every mongoose in Puerto Rico is rabid, but if you know that the majority or significant portion of rabies cases come from that kind of animal, you're probably going to avoid that kind of animal much more so than you would avoid them in a place like Hawaii. Now, of course, mongooses have other problems and other issues with them being an invasive species that make them a problem in both places, but you can understand why in Puerto Rico there are significant more warnings related to mongooses than there are in Hawaii on the Hawaiian Islands, and that is because a significant portion of the rabies risks come from them. All of this context, by the way, completely lost on Ian and Anissa. The ability to look this up, they can't fathom that concept. They're absolute idiots in every possible way. And to show you how dumb they are, there's actually a point where Ian, IDubbbz, the guy who used to do critical commentary of Dumb Dumb Idiots, actually says this.
He's nervous in this moment.
Let's comfort him because he's now in the land of the free.
Everything's perfect here. We need to make it clear that people come here because they want our green cards.
Ugh.
I'm worried about my family. It just goes back to the politics stuff, and
It's not comparable.
yeah.
So first of all, you stupid, concussed, going broke, embarrassing man. The entire point of 90 Day Fiancé is for people to get green cards in the United States of America. That is the whole premise of the show that you're watching, and now you're saying it's pro-American propaganda to show somebody trying to get a green card on this show from the nation of Iran because it makes people think that people want American green cards, when the entire premise of the show, and by the way, the premise and part of the visa is that people want green cards in the United States of America. But secondly, you guys need to understand that this is a guy who moved to Canada, another modern Western country that is very permissive, and not as permissive as the United States of America in terms of freedom of speech. Canada's a disaster in that regard, but that is where he moved. Now, IDubbbz and Anissa have money, or at least they had money at one point in time in their lives, and they could have went to other places in the world. They could have tried to move to a place like Iran, but obviously they weren't considering that because Iran is an inferior country. It is run by a worse government. That's not to say that the Iranian people are inferior, because they're actually, again, a wonderful people who deserve to not live under Islamic rule because their civilization is better than Islam historically. Make no mistake about it. But yeah, it's a worse place to live, a significantly worse place to live, just like many of the other nations that Ian ends up praising. So this idea that by the numbers, by the metrics, by the fact that people aren't moving to Iran, instead people are trying to get out of Iran, we should be able to know and understand this. This is like people that are praising Cuba all the time for their literacy rates or whatever stupid ass talking points that people like Bernie Sanders repeats, not acknowledging the fact that a bunch of Cubans get on rafts, go through shark infested waters to get to the United States of America because America is a significantly better nation. It's just a fact. It is backed by the stats. If we had more out-migration to another country, if people were choosing to leave here for their insignificant numbers, then you could make the case that that country people feel is better than the United States of America. But the fact is, it's the other way around. So much so that we have special visas and reality TV shows around those visas. But again, IDubbbz, after these people directly responded to him, included in their response, by the way, was a screenshot of their stream where they put a clown face over them. They decided to pretend that they were not being directly criticized by these people, and of course say, oh, well, I don't like the fact that this person was comparing anything to America, and America was in the positive there.
Can you address this real quick? As someone who is a sub and has gifted, letting you know I've canceled my sub, seeing the ignorant comments putting down the Iranian man did it for me. A close friend of mine's parents escaped Iran for Italy and have told me how bad the regime is. It's not American propaganda. Very disappointed. Do better. Write me off as a troll. I don't care.
I just want you to see the criticism and hopefully think before you speak. Honestly, I think this is... Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. When I see people talking specifically about... Like, if you want to be critical of the Iranian regime, that's great. That's fine. Like, if that... Especially if you have experience, right? But using another country to essentially say, like, America great, America awesome, that's where I have the problem with. Right? And that's exactly what we saw. In some ways, it's more critical of the Discovery Network, Discovery Plus, or whatever it's called, when they are essentially using this as an opportunity, because we're already bombarded with a lot of xenophobic in our media.
Now, they also highlight North Korea as a positive nation as well, which again just goes to show you that IDubbbz is dead serious about being the white version of Cenk's nephew, and it's absolutely embarrassing. And by the way, as embarrassing as that previous video that we talked about on this channel, where he started praising mass migration in Italy and talked about how this third world style market in a slum in Italy that is being taken over by a bunch of foreigners was in fact a farmer's market, and there was no way for you to be able to tell that those people were immigrants and not regular ordinary Italians, even though again they look like people from Bangladesh, and the market looked exactly like the markets in Bangladesh. And in addition to that, in that particular video, IDubbbz appeared to not know what a park is and not understand what people using drugs and destroying a park actually look like.
So this is the part of the video where they really up the levels of propaganda. They start you off softly implying by just showing you, like, this isn't like the postcards of Europe that you see. You guys have heard of Rome in your history class. You never saw pictures like this. You saw beautiful things like the Colosseum, but now you have to see immigrants. And then you get to this guy who's like, all right, now that I've primed you, I'm going to tell you how dangerous this street is that's adjacent to the farmer's market. Never mind the fact that none of you have any idea what this market is, what this street is. He's just going to act like he's an authority on the matter.
So yeah, Ian and Anissa, you're absolutely embarrassing. It's hilarious that this Iranian guy and his wife called you out after we saw massacres of protesters in the nation of Iran and talked about the restrictions that you were denying existed, while simultaneously trying to throw the United States of America under the bus, because it just shows how out of touch you are, how you have no perspective, and again, how your goal first and foremost is to blame and attack America first. And again, if you guys actually want to hold to those positions that America bad, America terrible, please, I'm begging you, renounce your U.S. citizenship. Just say that you're not about this nation anymore, you don't want to be here, and seek asylum in Canada because of all the oppression the United States of America has visited upon you by elevating you to the status of famous person, and then, of course, you using that fame to attack America, and you not facing any legal repercussions for it in the same way that you would in Iran, or facing the targeting of your family in the same way that you would face in Iran. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Ian and Anissa being absolutely terrible. Till next time.